You guys okay today? Welcome to Cornerstone Family Church on one of our wonderful summer Sundays, and I get to see different faces every Sunday. Of course, maybe if you were here last week, you're seeing a different face. If you just visited last week and this is your second time back, that's good. That means you're getting to see a fresh face, and that means Pastor Tim did a very good job last week. He always does. Thank you guys for all your work you're doing and for seeing something bigger about life than just yourself. Thank you very much for that. How many of you guys are here that was baptized a couple weeks ago? How many of you are here today? Why don't you just stand real quick? I didn't get to recognize you last week, and a few of you here. We baptized 17, and we did a couple double dunks, and we did our first official triple dunk. And I loved the three people that jumped in the water at the same time, and I knew we were going to double dunk two of them, but the third one came, and I said, "So what's up?" And they said, "Well, we just want to go down together. We want to be baptized together." And I loved what they said. They said, "We've drugged together our whole life. We should be baptized together." I thought, that is awesome, man. And we only lost one of them, but we did find them at the bottom of the pool and resuscitated them. And so we had a miracle at our baptism. So the first time you do something, you got to, you're not always prepared. No, how are we going to do this? Thank you, Richard, for catching the middleman. Can I get a little bit vulnerable with you guys today, and you not read more into it than what you need to, and just instead of hearing a story about me, process it through the filter of your own life? You all know how to do that, right? Pastors tell a lot of stories about themselves for basically two reasons. First of all, when you tell personal stories, there's more passion and even anointing in that than if you're just telling somebody else's story. Makes sense, right? The second thing is pastors tell stories about themselves, understanding up front that if it's happened to them, it's happened to you, and you're going to be able to insert yourself into the plot of the story. And that's what we do with all the Bible stories when we preach from God's Word. If I preach to you today about David and Goliath, I'm not just telling you somebody else's story so that you'll understand some history. I'm telling you that story because you'll put yourself in David's shoes and you will think about your own Goliath that you're currently facing and hopefully find the encouragement and inspiration to hit him in the head with a rock. And so I want you to be able to do that today. And I want you to also know that despite some people's opinion, I'm a reasonably stable person. I say that half jokingly. The serious part is I really am stable when it comes to I'm a very even-keeled person. I didn't say mentally stable. I'm talking emotionally stable. Mental is still out with the jury. But emotionally, I've just always been a very even-keeled person as far back as I can remember as a child. I never really have great valley experiences, and it usually takes something pretty major to pull me down into a valley. And I have learned to do what the Apostle Paul has taught us, how to encourage yourself, how to build yourself up in the most holy faith, how to fan the flame of God. And the Lord has just taught me how to do those things through the years. And so I just don't really have any bottom times much. And, some discouraging days, some stinky days, but as far as just really getting in the valley and hanging out there for a while, that's just never been my nature. On the same token, I'm not the kind of guy anymore that gets these great highs either. When you're a kid and you're going to Carowinds or something, you get all excited, you can't sleep the night before, or Christmas Eve, you can't go to sleep, and you get a little older and somehow you grow past that stuff and you get emotionally settled, and if something exciting is going to happen, I look forward to it, vacation or something, but I don't get all excited about it. I don't think about it the night before and lose sleep. I told my wife yesterday morning, in fact, that I saw the first thing in a long time that triggered a part of my emotions that hadn't been touched in a long time. I was coming down early yesterday morning to get the AC pulled down to get ready for the wedding. And coming down Mercer Street, I'm sitting there at the library at Park, and coming across the light there is about a 40 or 41 Ford, and it's It's mostly primered out, but there is flames on the front of it, Jackie, and it's all tubbed out with these big wide tires, and it's all underneath. It's tubbed, and I've got the window down, and I can hear it, and there's horses under the hood, and I'm looking at it, and my wife knows that car, that package there, that's my thing. And it was the first time in years that my impulse part of my brain woke up. And I came home and I said, man, if there would have been a for sale sign on that, I would have hunted him down. And I said, just, whatever it takes, whatever you need, I'm going to find the money, because it really excited me, Ed. And if you know who that is, it's a 40 or 41, something like that. It's primered out mostly in black. And you guys go to the car shows, Ron, so keep your eyes open for that. Tubbed out, man, tubbed out underneath. It's pretty sweet. And I could just feel the Spirit of the Lord when it's going by, just pulling on my heart and saying, son, I want to bless you. I want to bless you. Tell the people what's on your heart Sunday morning. I want to bless you. So pastor appreciation is usually in October. Is that about right? And so that gives you time, first of all, to find the car, find the price tag on the car, and do some fundraisers. So it's going to take a bunch of fundraisers, I got a feeling. It's lots of shoes. With all that said, I want you to know that I believe I am the most blessed human being on the planet. And you should see yourself the same way, by the way. If you have a bad week, it's only because there's not proper scale. It doesn't mean there's been a tragedy or anything really bad happen. It just means emotionally you can have a bad week. I had one of those weeks that wasn't my greatest weeks this week. It's one of those weeks, it's just like, I'll be glad when this passes and I can start over fresh next week. It started last Friday when we left to go to Toledo for our Chinese adoption. And I don't know why, but it just seems like good things don't happen to me when I'm in the state of Ohio. And the closer I get to Columbus, to Ohio State. And if you ever been any place where like when Jesus pulled up to Gadarenes and just remember the demoniac came running out and you just kind of sense something's not right here? And the closer to Columbus you get up 33, the more you get unsettled in your spirit and you know something's wrong here. Chris, I'm sorry. I actually like you. So as many of you know that travel in Ohio, on that side of Ohio, they've never heard of a speed limit above 55, and that's just kind of crazy because the roads are straight, and we're not used to that. And I'm just telling you, I don't have a lot of hidden sins, but I do have a few, and one of them is I have a hard time driving the speed limit. I'll just confess that to you. And whatever the speed limit is, I know how much I can usually fudge above that and get away with it. But not in Ohio. There's no fudge room in Ohio. And Jackie, have you ever been pulled over and you felt, though, that you were justified in doing what you did if the officer could just understand what you're trying to tell them? Many times. Me too. I remember one time getting 3 tickets on the way home from Florida to here because my grandfather was dying and he was very close to me. And I really was trying to get home before he passed away, and I didn't make it. Got 3 tickets on the way home. Every time the officers would pull me and say, what's your big rush, young man? And I would tell the story about my grandfather who's dying. And they're just, you could see them just roll their eyes up. It's like, yeah, that's the 10th time I've heard that one today. So this guy, it's a 2-lane road, and it goes to 4-lane. It's 2-lane, it's 4-lane. They're setting you up. And Hannah's with me. She said, Daddy, I saw the last sign. It said 60 miles an hour, which didn't really matter because I was doing 74 anyway. So whether it was 55 or 60, but we're just trying to make Daddy feel better here. And so we're on 2-lane. This guy is poking in front of me. He's going 55 miles per hour. I know it's a 60-mile-per-hour zone, and this is unacceptable. And so I did what I had to do, and I'm waiting for the broken line, and I'm waiting for no oncoming traffic, and I see there is an opportunity. It's not a huge opportunity, but it's an opportunity. And I pull out, and I lay down on the gas, and I give that little Honda everything she's got. And then I'm coming to a curve, and I see a car coming in my direction. It's like, so for the safety sake of my family, I laid on the gas a little bit more so I could hurry up and get around the car. And as soon as before I could even pull back in, the car coming my way got closer. And what are the odds? What are the odds that the car coming towards you is a cop with his radar on? What's the odds? You have to say that's divine providence. It was meant to be, right? Either that or the devil's just trying to kill me here. And I pull in. He's still hundreds of yards in front of us, and the blue lights come on. And I'm like, gee, I wonder where he's going. There must be an emergency. I know he's coming after me, so I go ahead and slow down and pull over. I'm trying to get brownie points, you see. And because, well, this nice young man. So he turns around, he comes back. I'm sitting there waiting. I tell her, give me all the stuff. We've got license, registration, insurance card. I've got it in my hand. I'm ready to go. He walks up. He said, sir, do you know why I pulled you over? And I said, well, I understand in Ohio there's a program that you pull people over there and hand them awards for being just really, really good drivers. I didn't say it out loud. I was thinking. He said, son, any idea how fast you were going back there? And I said, pretty fast. I mean, there's no sense lying. He said, you were doing 74. And I said, that sounds about right. Because the last time I looked down, it was at least 74. He said, you know, this is a 55. And I said, well, you know, the guy behind me was poking, and I needed to get around him. And I saw you coming. I thought, you know, for safety's sake, I needed to hurry and get around him and get back in. And he just didn't seem to be moved at all by that. And then he said one of the silliest things I've ever heard a cop say to me. Because I don't know what his options were at that point, and I think I was a mile short of reckless driving, so he couldn't have written me up for that. So I'm thinking that, you know, all he can do is he's either going to issue me a citation or he's going to let me off with a warning. Because, and then he said, well, what? And my wife was even pleading my case. She said, I promise you, sir, he has not been speeding. I've been watching him and yelling at him. He's not been speeding. And he's just like, so where are y'all going? And she said, we're going to a Chinese adoption reunion in Toledo. It's like, that should grab his heart right there. He's looking in the back seat. He sees this little Chinese girl. She's so cute. And Hannah's just back there, you know, oh, Daddy, it's a cop, and you're getting pulled over. He's coming. And she's just excited, man. It's like Christmas for her. That's her first experience with that. And he wasn't moved by that. And then he said the silliest thing I've ever heard a cop say to me. He says, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, sir. I'm just going to, at that point, what would you think he was going to say after that? Exactly. He said, I'm just going to cite you for speeding, 74 and a 55. What were the other options? I mean, hauling me off to one of those prison camps somewhere where your family doesn't know where you're at for the next 10 years? I mean, waterboarding, I'm just going to issue a citation. And it's just like, well, I'm sure glad that's just, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he was going to pull his nightstick out or something. I don't know. But so that just kind of messed it up because he hands us the ticket, and you know how they finish it. Oh, you have a good day. And you know how we act when we get pulled. How many's ever been pulled over? Now, what's the last thing you have said to the cop when he hands you the ticket? Exactly. What's wrong with us? Thank you for pulling me over, ruining my day. Now I have to give money that I don't really have. It's ruined this whole trip. So he hands me the ticket, and I said, well, thank you, sir. You have a good day. It's just my nature. I'm a very nice guy. And now, of course, how many of you men have ever been pulled over with your wife in the car? I kept trying to tell her, I know. There's nothing you can tell me that I don't already know. I understand what just happened here. I don't need play-by-play. I don't need you to explain anything to me. I know what I did. I told her, I said, no, that's... And now my wife is going to confess some of that sin. Earlier she said, you don't know the bad things I've done.
The rest of the story is, not 2 minutes before this happened, I had told him, what 2 words did I tell you?
And I said, I know what I'm doing here.
I didn't get mad. I didn't get upset. I handed him the piece of paper with, do you see how much this is costing? Wasn't mad, wasn't upset. Still not mad, still not upset.
Thank you, little woman. Thank you for helping me preach. But these are my stories and not yours. And so $130 written on the bottom. He said, you can come back to traffic court and contest this if you want, like I'm coming back to Ohio for anything ever again the rest of my life. Stop at McDonald's on this side of Columbus. Of course. All McDonald's in every other state in the world has drink stations. You get your own refills, not Ohio. And so I'm being very vocal. You know, I want to make sure everyone understands how I'm feeling about it. I said, this place is in a time warp. What's wrong with this state? And everyone's walking around with Buckeye shirts and everything on, and I got my West Virginia logo. I always fly my colors when I go to Ohio. Once we got... Yeah, it's all that West Virginia paraphernalia. Jackie, if you go to Ohio, take it all off, man. Wonderful trip once we got there. We love those families, and it's just a special time. You ever been in a place in life where a whole bunch of little things happen? If only one of those things, maybe two of them happen, you could brush it off and just walk off and it not be that big a deal. But if a whole bunch of them happen about the same time within minutes or hours apart, it gets a little bit too heavy to carry. You know what I'm talking about? And I kind of had one of those days as we were coming home and till into the night. And just, and this is the part I don't want you to read too much into. I just got to tell you, in my job, there's some of the greatest, most joyful experiences that a human being could ever imagine. It's unfair that everyone doesn't get to experience the joys that I get to. But I got to tell you, when the lows hit, they're low, man. They're crushing. And if too many things happen collectively, it gets hard. And, you know, I've never been the type to say, you know, that's it, I can't do this anymore, I'm out of here, I'm quitting, I'm resigning, and, you know, I'm just not that type at all. And because I know that the moment will change. If I can just hold on and not give up, stick a gun in your mouth, it will change back. But sometimes the emotional weight is just, it's hard. And it's just one of those things with just a concession and stuff. And like I said, a lot of those things were things that if it was just that one thing, it's like, oh, shoot. And it's just like it kind of messes your day up, but you go on, you keep doing what you're doing. But when 2 or 3, 4 things happen within minutes of each other and just, you know, you want to stop answering the phone eventually because you just know it ain't going to be good anymore. You can tell the ring sometimes. It's just like, that's not a good call. And then you start adding on other things on that you were handling just fine till you just got pressed down a little bit in the pit. And then the things that you normally would just fluff off, it's just part of routine. And just the whole thing that just with summer and just pastors really fight a lot of discouragement in the summer because congregations are very scattered. I shared with you a few weeks ago, there's not a single summer we don't lose at least 1 or 2 really good families because they get so scattered. In the summer, they're spiritually strong going into the summer. Summer hits, and we never see them again because the world just draws them back. And then on top of that, it's just been one of those summers where multiple families have come to me and said, Pastor Scott, I got some bad news. My husband's being relocated. We're moving in 2 weeks. And it's just been one of those summers where if I don't answer the phone, if I never get my messages on Facebook, never check my emails, never check texts, life will be good. And this summer's just been one of those summers. It's like, daggone it. And I tell you, I started bottoming out a little bit. And I wasn't, it's not what I was saying as much as what I wasn't saying. And my wife knows me. And anytime you're riding in a car for, 3 solid hours and you don't say a word, and I'm the one usually gabbing over there, she knows it's not good. And got home and I just made a few comments, and to be very honest with you, I made some comments just basically saying I feel like a failure. I just feel like a failure. And how many of you has ever felt that way? Just feel like you can't get anything right. In maybe for you it's different venues than what I was experiencing in your marriage, raising your kids, on a job, trying to improve the quality of your life, or whatever it is. You just can't seem to get 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And I had a couple days, about a 48-hour period this week. It's just like, and my wife hearing the little bit that she heard, she said something that kind of began to shock me back to my senses. And with all sincerity, she just grabbed me and held me, and she said, maybe it's time to move on. Maybe it's time God wants us to go somewhere else and do something else. I don't know why she said it, and because it's not the case, but it got my attention because that's not how I really was feeling, but that's where my emotions were clearly at in the moment. It's like, what's the point? You ever had those days? What's the point? What's the point? I know you can relate. I don't like brokenness. I don't like vulnerability. I like to be strong. But that 48-hour period for me was one of the healthiest things I've went through in a long time. One of the healthiest 48-hour periods that I have needed for so long. If you hear just with your carnal mind, this will not make sense, but if you can hear with spiritual ears, you will understand what I'm saying. There is nothing that can be more healthy in a Christian's life than the right kind of brokenness that says, I am weak. Don't know if I can do this, because you can't, not in your own strength. It reminded me, though, of days that I didn't used to handle those seasons the same way. And it reminded me of, especially when I look at the Bible and also just watch the life all around me, especially pastoring for over 17 years, that when we hit those seasons, how prone we are, even as Christians, just to run. You just want to run away from it all. You know what I mean? Just get in the car. For me, it's head south, because somehow the deeper into the south I get, the better it's going to make me feel. It's like, if this ain't working, at least I want Spanish moss hanging from the trees and palm trees and waves lapping up on the beach. You know, at least I'm going to get that kind of consolation. But it seems like it's such human nature that when things start breaking and it begins to affect us so emotionally, life is not working the way that we thought it should work. Our dreams are being shattered. Our expectations are just ruined. The things that are closest to us and matter the most, it's just not working the way we thought it was supposed to. And as children of God, it's common just to take flight. Not just run from those things, but to run from God. And the Bible's full of stories of familiar people who set that pattern, running from God, and for all kinds of reasons. I mean, Adam, it's early in the creation story, and he's running from God because of guilt and condemnation and shame. And I've been there. Did something wrong. Not just a thing, but a whole season of life that I did wrong, and just embarrassed and ashamed and just running from God. And I have people come to me all the time, and they'll say, you know what, the Lord wants to do a fresh work in your life. And they'll say, but you don't understand what I've done, where I've been. And they're battling guilt, and they're battling shame, and they're running from God as fast as they can go. I shared this story on the back of the bulletin today, and I thank you, Vaughn, for reminding me this morning that some people actually do read those stories, and that was a hard time in my life, running from God because of guilt and shame, and my mom just saying, Scotty, when are you going to stop running from God? Now, I was a mixture of Adam and Jonah. Jonah was running from a call. I was very intentionally running from a call in God's life for many years. I didn't want the responsibility of it. I didn't agree with God that I could do what He thought I could do. When I was 12 years old, I've shared the story a few times. The only time God ever spoke to me in an audible voice. I don't care if it ever happens again. I was frozen in fear for hours at 12 years old in my bed after the voice of God spoke just a few simple words to me, and I knew what He was saying. And I was excited about it till I went to college and discovered there was a world out there that I hadn't discovered yet. And I had battled insecurities and low self-esteem and inadequacies of all kinds, and I didn't think I could be who God said that He wanted me to be for Him, and I ran from it. And Jonah was like it. Jonah's running from the call, and Adam is running and hiding from God. And the Bible's full of stories of people running from God, and running from broken dreams, and running from life just not working out. running from troubles, running from adversity, running from conflict, running because we're either mad at God or we think God's mad at us. How many's ever been mad at God? How many's ever felt like that God let you down? You can be honest. How many's ever felt like for whatever reason, even if you were wrong, that God has told you something, showed you something, and the reason I'm always cautioning people who like to kind of flow in the prophetic, be careful what you're telling people. Make sure it's from the heart of God, because we tell people things in the name of God, and then it doesn't come to pass. And people who do not always know how to separate those things are crushed. And God lied to them. I've been prophesied all kinds of things that didn't come to pass. I finally learned that just because a human being tells me something doesn't always mean God just told me something. There is nothing that'll make you run from God faster than feeling like God just crushed your dreams. God hates me. He doesn't like me. He's not concerned about me. He doesn't see me. He doesn't care. Yeah, that's going to make you stick around. You're going to run from God. The Bible's full of stories of people that did that to let us know that we will be prone to do that also. And then there's guys like David. David, who often was on the lam, on the run from Saul, but somehow a man who faced adversity and conflict. You talking about broken dreams? When this guy is a kid, the prophet Samuel pulls him out, covers his head with oil, anoints him as the future king of Israel. This kid don't have a clue what's going on, but you know that landed in his heart. And the whole time he's growing up, how does he get away from that? And now he's in Saul's court, and he's serving for Saul, and he's not king yet, and he's on the run, and Saul's trying to kill him. You don't run from King Saul and survive. And he's hiding in caves, and now he's living among the Philistines, their greatest arch enemy, and he's doing what he has to do to survive, and they're eating bugs, and they're just, this is not what God told him his life was going to be. That's life. We grow up with all kinds of expectations. I've told you many times through the years, our single biggest enemy in life is expectation. That's why when we prepare people for marriage, we finished marriage number 6 yesterday, and I think there's still maybe another one looming this fall. And man, I work hard preparing not those people ahead of time, but even in the ceremonies yourself. You know that I try to speak things to the whole congregation to let you know this is hard stuff. It's for better or for worse, which tells me there will be better and there will be worse. But we have such expectations about what it means to be married. We have such expectations about having children and how glorious and wonderful that's going to be. Please. On some days, yes. Remember the animals. Don't follow their lead. Don't eat your children. We get mad at God. We get upset at God. And David definitely had his illusion of life shattered. But David had learned that when he's running from everything else in life, when it's just pressing on him and about to crush him, he learned how to channel all that run into running to God. Let me just show you a few passages this morning that is the pattern that if we can learn to follow. And I want you to look at this terminology that David and one of the sons of Korah and Solomon and these guys, look at the terminology they use describing God as the one to run to. Look at this in Psalm 18. All these passages in place because of humanity's proneness to run from God. It says, I will love thee, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my strength, in whom I will trust, my buckler and the horn of my salvation, and my high tower. I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from my enemies. David saying, you're my rock, you're my fortress, you're my strong tower. Look at this next psalm. Written by one of the sons of Korah. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, will not we fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the sea, into the midst of the sea. Though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof. And I want you to make sure you see the extremeness of what this psalmist is saying. He's using terminology that we know is not literal. It's very abstract. He's saying, though the waters roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling. He's talking about life. Just the storms and the shakings of life. He's saying, but the Lord is my refuge. He's my strong tower. Look at what Solomon said in Proverbs 18, verse 10. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. He learned from his daddy that one. The righteous run into it and is safe. The righteous run to him. David said he's a rock, he's a fortress, he's a strong tower, he's my refuge. How many of you guys understand what a refuge is? A refuge is the place you run when you're in trouble. When everyone's trying to get you, they're trying to kill you. In the old days, outlaws would run into churches because it was a place of safety, and there were laws in place that you couldn't encroach the boundaries of the church to get them and arrest them. And it was called a refuge, and it was even written upon church legislation. This is a refuge. David's saying he is a refuge. He's the one I run to. Solomon said, I run to him, the strong tower. We're going to run. In hard times, in disappointing times, in crushing times, we're going to run. The question is, will we run from God or will we run to God? David said, better is one day in your house than thousands elsewhere. I think you guys sang that last week. Better is one day in your... Why is it better one day in his house than thousands elsewhere? Because his house is a refuge. It's a place of comfort. It's a place of encouragement. It's a place where God has a chance to get intimate with you and say, I've got this. It's under control. For me, I'd rather go through trouble with him than without him. It's hard sometimes because when it's out of control, you don't know what to do because there's nothing you can do. So we're prone just to try to run away from it. But I'd rather be in trouble with him than without him. If something's discouraging me, then I need to learn to run to the one who is the encourager, the comforter, the Holy Spirit. Let him comfort me. I'm telling you, the Lord brought comfort into my life in ways that I needed to remember this week. I needed to be reminded that life often does not work the way you think. Lots of visions don't come to pass the way you think. Lots of dreams get broken. There's very few things in life that work the way you think. Very few things. That's why Paul said, there's nothing when it comes to trouble that is not common to all human beings. Solomon said it like this, there's nothing new under the sun. And that's why when Jesus was getting ready to go to the cross, he said, I'm going to leave you. And he was speaking of physically. And he was talking about his own reappearance, only not physically. He said, I'm going to send one greater than myself, and he will be the comforter. We think of only being a comforter needing a comforter because we're sad. I need a comforter because my dreams just got shattered. It can't be fixed. No one can pat me on the back. Nobody can come and say, let me fix that for you. It's not going to be fixed. So all I can get is comfort or just run and sink into the bottomless pit. Running to God. We've got to learn to run to God. And we've got to make sure we remember how to make that tangible. Tangibly running to God. Tangibility in running to God is being here. Being surrounded in fellowship by people who through them God can comfort you and encourage you and build you up, can be with you. Some of you have gotten to the age where you understand that when you're going through something and people show up and they say, I don't know what to say, they don't need to say anything. Just them being there and knowing what you're going through somehow is a strength and a comfort. I used to think the silliest thing was when people would say, well, I'm thinking about you while you're going through that. Say, well, how's that going to help? Well, guess what? It does help. It really does help. Being in a place where the presence of God is. Oh, my goodness. This week was just a week where I just had some walks with God and some talks with God and getting back into some places, just worshiping Him and just intentionally finding His presence. And when I find His presence, instantly I find that David was right. The mountains melt like wax in His presence. If I run from Him, I'm running from His presence, and the mountains are getting bigger. They're not melting. Being in praise and worship and in His presence and being where His Word is being spoke. And just you personally getting in the Word and finding comfort and finding strength. For when we are weak, He is made strong. And one of the best ways that happens is just through His Word. Prayer and just pondering God and just taking walks and drives with God. Not running from Him, but running to Him. It's a very personalized thing. And for me, I don't have ABCs. Every time it's a little bit different. And I just learn how to find God fresh all over again. And He puts everything in perspective. It's good to have to be vulnerable in life. It's good to be broken in life. Some of you here know what it's like to have your darkest hour. My darkest hours don't compare with some of your darkest hours. Hours that you didn't know how you were going to breathe, how you're going to get one more gasp of air into your lungs because the weight of that moment was crushing you. You felt abandoned. You felt God had abandoned you. Everybody else had abandoned you. It's not good for man to be alone when he feels that way. The dark hours are never pleasant. I don't wish them on anybody, and it's unfair that people have to go through a lot of things they go through. But I want you to know, God has a way of taking your darkest hour and turning it into the most incredible connection with Him you could ever imagine. A connection with God that you would have never known if it wouldn't have been for that dark hour. That place of vulnerability in your heart that just if you won't run and you'll run to Him, it draws you to Him. And my baby, she's like a lot of children, only she maybe climbs more than she should. And she gets hurt, and her little legs just stay scarred up. But most of the time she falls, she jumps up, I'm okay. And then every once in a while it's not okay. And my daughter never cries. And when she cries, I'm not talking about a whine. I'm talking about a cry. You know she hurts. And when she hurts, she comes to find Daddy. And she crawls up on my lap. And that child never seems smaller than when she's in pain and sitting on my lap. How many of you parents know what I'm talking about? Your child is in pain, and they get up on your lap, and suddenly they seem so tiny. They're so small, and they're so vulnerable, and they're so fragile. You take them and you pull them in close to you. You can't fix what just happened, but you're holding them, and you're petting them, and you're going, shh, Daddy's got you. It's going to be okay. And guess what? It makes it okay. And that's what God wants to do with us. When we're broken, when we're vulnerable, when we're crushed, He wants us to run to Him, get up on His lap. Be small, be tiny, be weak. It's okay. And let Him pull you into the refuge. Let Him pull you in. Let Him comfort you. Let Him teach you about His strength that can only be found in your weakness. Let Him teach you. I wrote a song a bunch of years ago. I don't know if I can sing it. But it was after a season that was much worse than this one. It was a season of loss. It was a season of disappointment. It was a season where an idiot spoke on behalf of God and told me that something was about to happen, and the thing literally died in the womb. And I'm thinking, have I lost my mind, or has God lost his mind, or what's going on here? And that's when you want to get in the car and head south. And the deeper into Florida I get, the better I am. It's familiar territory, and I think I'm out of here. And but if you will not run and you'll run to God, God has a way of sharing very intimate things with you that you normally wouldn't be able to hear unless you were so broken and vulnerable. He's told me things that I couldn't have heard in any other condition. And he knit him and I together in ways we couldn't have been knit together. I'll never forget that season. And I wrote a song based on the conversation basically him and I had. And he said, "Son, you can run. I'll let you run." And he reminded me of the story of the prodigal son, which is really about the Father. It's really about God. And he said, you know, I'll let you go. If you want to go, I'll let you go. You can run. But if you do, your destiny is not going to be the same. So you can run. But won't you learn to run to me? And you can hide. But won't you learn to hide in me? And you can fall. But won't you learn to fall on me? Let the Lord minister to you today.
Sometimes the road gets weary, the journey much too long. The voice is deep inside and all around say run. But deep inside I hear a voice whisper from a place of deep, telling me that I can run, but the destiny's not the same. He said you can run as long as you run to me. You can hide as long as you hide in me. You can fall as long as you fall on me. Sometimes I'm like a little child playing hide and seek. I want to run and hide where no one will ever find me. But deep inside I hear a voice whisper from a place of deep, telling me that I can hide, but the destiny's not the same. He said you can run as long as you run to me. You can hide as long as you hide in me. You can fall as long as you fall on me. Just being honest here. Times the fear of failure tries to vex my soul. What if I stumble? What if I fall? Can I stand at all? But deep inside I hear a voice, a whisper from a place of deep, telling me that I can fall, but the destiny's not the same. He said you can run as long as you run to me. You can hide as long as you hide in me. You can fall as long as you fall on me. You can run as long as you run to me. You can hide as long as you hide in me. You can fall as long as you fall on me. Father, I just lift up this, my family to you today, Lord. I lift them up to you. Lord, I didn't come here to tell sad stories and for me to cry on anyone's shoulder, for them to want to cry on anyone's shoulder. Lord, I've come to encourage them to run to the rock. Lord, there's some people out there today that need to learn to do that, to run to you. In the disappointing times, Lord, and just the discouraging times and the crushing times and the broken times and the dark times. Lord, we know that you have purpose to do something really, really, really extraordinary in those times that could not happen at any other time. And today, Lord, I pray that you'll give people courage to do that, to run to you, to run to you, to run to you, to run to you. And so I say this to you in closing. You can run as long as you run to him. You can hide as long as you hide in him. You can fall as long as you fall on him. Oh, why don't we stand together? How many of you guys are going to determine today to approach life a little different? Come on. I want to see some hands. How many of you guys will say, I'm going to leave here today and I'm going to approach life differently, and I'm going to learn to run to God? How many of you guys want to learn to run to God? Learn to run to the rock. Well, I don't know how to get out of this, so I'm going to have one of me stay here and play and the other one go out front. My spirit's the one that's going to stay here. My body's going to go out front. I love you guys. Thank you for being here today. If you are in a place of brokenness, a place of where you've just been crushed, don't you think that's a bad thing. Let God turn that into something good, okay? Okay? I love you guys. Bless you. Go in peace.